this is about family. I introduced our family who we've been working hard, but it's not really about us. Our purpose and our heart and our vision is for individuals and their families to reconnect after months and possibly years of disconnection. It's the one thing my mother knows and my father knew was family. His entire family, and it's a big Polish family, gathered here from Ohio, Georgia. Is there Florida? In any case, Savannah, Georgia. We know family, and I know that there will be individuals who don't necessarily have it, but that's our heart, is just connection and communication, and I'm not going to belabor that, but in any case, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Christopher Zyda from Beverly Hills. And he just, I didn't mean it to sound like that. We love Beverly Hills. And more importantly, well, not more importantly, we just have always kind of joked about us and our blonde family coming out here and running a farm. So it suited that we had a Californian come back out here. In any case, he's a great friend of our family. It's another steady stream of encouragement, and I'll let him share his involvement and how this has come about.
I don't actually live in Beverly Hills. My office is there. It's an honor to be here in Virginia Beach in front of this community of Navy SEALs and Special Operations warriors. Lynn mentioned at dinner last night that there could potentially be dozens of Navy SEALs here, so I'm feeling very safe right now. But how on earth did I, a man from Los Angeles, California, who never even served in the military, ever become involved in helping Lynn Bukowski start this foundation? It all began with my good friend, Joel Lambert, a former U.S. Navy SEAL, who operated for 10 years, I believe, who's now the star of the hit television show Lone Target on Discovery, so be sure and watch it. But before Joel's TV show, he was my personal trainer for 3 years, and he introduced me to the fun and the pain of CrossFit workouts with a Navy SEAL twist, and he got me into the best shape of my life, whether I wanted to or not. Many of my workouts with Joel would begin with him saying something like, "Chris, you're about to do this awesome workout that I did when I was in the teams." After which I would endure up to 2 hours of push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, dips, running, rope climbs, with Joel in my face yelling, "Easy day, easy day." Anyway, on April 30th, Joel asked me if I would speak to his close friend Lynn Bukowski, who was trying to start a retreat for Navy SEALs and other special operations veterans. Joel said that Lynn needed some financial advice, and I agreed to speak with her, but I had no idea of the wild journey ahead. Lynn and I had a call the next day. Lynn told me about her husband of 30 years, Steve, who served in the Navy SEALs for 32 years, and who attained the rank of Master Chief E9, which I don't really know exactly what that means, but I looked on Google and it's a pretty good title. She told me that Steve had a dream of building a retreat for Navy SEALs and other special operations brothers to decompress and transition back into civilian life when they returned home from deployments. And he passed away in 2010 before he could realize this dream. And Lynn said that she wanted to establish this warrior retreat in his memory, and that she discovered a 38-acre property in Virginia Beach, where we are today, that would make the perfect location for this retreat. There was just one obstacle. It was a foreclosed bank-owned property, and Lynn wasn't quite sure how to go about making an offer on it. So now anyone here who has purchased or tried to purchase a foreclosed property from a bank knows that this process is a nightmare. And even if you can pull it off, it usually takes several months. Which bank owns this property, I asked Lynn, while silently praying to myself, please don't let it be one of the really big banks or she's screwed. And Lynn replied, the Bank of Hampton Roads. Well, up until that moment, I had never heard of the Bank of Hampton Roads. But with, it's true. But with Lynn on the phone, I fired up Google and I found the bank's website and I said to Lynn, let's see if you know anyone at the Bank of Hampton Roads, thinking that we might find a Virginia Beach neighbor or a friend who could help. And I started to read Lynn the name of the bank's executive management team, and then something amazing happened. I saw the name Robert Goldstein on the bank's board of directors. Now, there are a lot of Robert Goldsteins in the world, so I had to double check his bio, but it turned out that this Bob Goldstein was the same Bob Goldstein that was on the board of directors at my last public company in San Francisco, where I was chief financial officer. And the same Bob Goldstein who's been my friend for the last 11 years. So I couldn't believe it. What is the chance that in a country of 316 million people, that Lynn would ask Joel for help, and Joel would ask me, and that I would end up knowing a board member on a bank 3,000 miles away that owned the property that you wanted to buy? So I knew in that instant that I was in a special place to help. So I emailed Bob. Bob immediately put me in touch with the bank's chief executive officer, Doug Glenn, and Greg Marshall, who is actually here today, who runs the bank's foreclosed property group, and John Maloney, who's also here today, who runs the commercial lending group. And instantly, Lynn was in the game negotiating to purchase this property. Now, there were several other bidders on this property, so Lynn's offer had to beat the competition, but it did. And her offer was accepted by the Bank of Hampton Roads on May 9th, which was 10 days after we met. As a man who's purchased many foreclosed properties in his career, trust me on this one, it never happens this fast. Along the way, I was so impressed with the Bank of Hampton Roads that I opened a money market account there. And I also became a stockholder. Now they're really in trouble. And their money market interest rates are good, so if you have any money left after you finish donating to this retreat, you should consider an account there. So what a happy ending, right? But not so fast. It turned out that Lynn had only climbed the first of 3 mountains needed to realize her and Steve's dream. The second mountain involved a battle with the Internal Revenue Service. The bank had made it a condition of closing that Lynn's Warrior Retreat be approved by the IRS as a charitable organization, which is a fair request. Just one problem. Lynn had filed the required paperwork with the IRS in February of 2013, but as of May of 2014, the IRS still had not approved it. That's 15 months with no approval, and that's crazy. And as an American citizen who pays a lot of taxes each year, this really pissed me off. So the clock was ticking and we needed to get this deal done. So I have a friend, who shall remain nameless, who used to head the tax practice at one of the largest accounting firms in the country. I called him and he gave me a special IRS phone number. Not a secret IRS phone number. I don't want to get in trouble with any intelligence officers that are here today. This was a special phone number. He told me, Chris, call this phone number and the IRS might be able to move the application up to the top of the pile for approval. So I gave Lynn the phone number and she began calling it every morning to get her application moved up in the queue. But I didn't want to just rely on one approach with the IRS. So Lynn and I launched a multi-front strategy and we became lobbyists. We enlisted the Virginia senators, Senator Tim Kaine and Senator Mark Warner, to lobby the IRS on Lynn's behalf. We also had the senators from New York, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Senator Charles Schumer lobbying the IRS. We had Virginia Congressman Scott Ridgell lobbying the IRS. We had the Secretary of Veterans Affairs at the time, Eric Shinseki, lobbying the IRS. Friends of mine in Washington, D.C., with contacts at the Treasury Department and even in the White House, were lobbying the IRS. I was this close to using the nuclear option, calling Oprah. So we had a small army of high-powered people scrambling around Washington, D.C., trying to help, but the IRS just wouldn't budge. Then one morning, Lynn, in her daily call to the special phone number, reached an IRS employee who was a veteran himself. And she told this veteran about Steve and her vision and his vision for this warrior retreat. And this fellow veteran was so touched by Lynn's story that he removed the application from the pile and he approved it. And that was on June 6th, 37 days after we met. 2 mountains climbed, 1 to go. Fundraising was the third and final mountain. Lynn and her family members had committed a significant amount of money, of their own money, to this retreat, but she still needed to raise some more money for the down payment to close on the property. And this is where I witnessed an incredible transformation in Lynn. She blossomed into a real chief executive officer with seemingly endless energy. She began holding speaking engagements and fundraisers everywhere to get the word out, and funds started to flow in. Lynn started a GoFundMe account to raise money. More funds flowed in. But Lynn still needed more money, and so she enlisted newspapers and local television stations as a public relations executive, and more funds flowed in. I had to draw the line, however, when Lynn suggested publishing a calendar of shirtless Navy SEALs to raise money. Just kidding, she didn't do that. And then one night I woke up at 3 a.m. with a crazy idea. I remembered that the Walt Disney Company, where I worked for 10 years, owned ABC News, and that I still knew people there. So I sent an email about this warrior retreat to a highly placed longtime friend of mine at Disney, who shall also remain nameless, and asked her to get my email to ABC News. And my friend came through. ABC contacted Lynn for an interview, and then ABC published a great story about this warrior retreat on its website. And this story gave Lynn some national media exposure, and more funds flowed in. And finally, Lynn had enough money for the down payment, and she closed her deal on June 20th, 51 days after we met. And here we are today at the dedication, not even 5 months later. Since June, this retreat has gathered momentum like a snowball rolling down a great big hill. I've witnessed from afar, out in LA, the incredible things happening here, like the enterprising Eagle Scout Timothy Bedford, who's here today, from Troop 996 and his troop, who built the amazing fire pit that we all saw earlier for his Eagle Scout service project. And an architect named John Hodges, who donated his expertise to design the master plan for this retreat, not resort, on display here today, for which more money is needed, so please keep donating. And even the state-of-the-art chicken coop built with love by Lynn's family members, Christy, Tony, Diane, and other volunteers, that looks like it belongs in Architectural Digest and is bigger than my first 2 apartments. And these are only 3 examples out of hundreds. So many good people have stepped forward. So I'm proud to have helped you, Lynn, and it's been a lot of fun too. There's nothing more rewarding than achieving the seemingly impossible, and Lynn, you have done it with your strength, your determination, and your boundless energy. It was just an easy day for you, to quote our friend Joel Lambert. I can still hear him yelling that in my ear. So clearly, not only are Navy SEALs incredibly tough individuals, but so are their wives. I never had the honor of meeting your husband, Steve, a true hero, but I can only begin to imagine how proud he must be of you. So congratulations. Now, stop goofing off and get to work already.
She does goof off quite a bit. We play Mad Gab like nobody's business. Thank you so much, Christopher. So you guys can see that there have been a lot of divine appointments, that this has happened. I don't want to say completely easily, but almost seamlessly, that from the get-go, my mother had a vision. She had a dream board. She had my father screaming in her ear, and it's unfolded so incredibly well. Just a few things before we kind of tie this to an end. We brought you all here today to thank you and to honor you and what you've done to help us. we've also brought you here to be a part of this dedication and blessing. We do not take for granted what people's hearts and their energy can pour into a property. And before I introduce Trine, who's going to be doing a blessing over this, I want to invite you all to really pour what you have into this place. When it's all said and done, and I don't want it to be anticlimactic, so I'm saying it now. When the blessing is over and we are able to bring this to a close, we want you to walk this property. We want you to feel the peace. We want you to see what it's going to be like. We want you to look at every view. We want you, be careful of the holes. There are a few. We want you to be able to go into our house, sit in those couches, look at the paintings, sit around the table, live here for a few minutes, live here for a few hours. We also have these TCC students who, for their class project, designed a memorial garden. You can see their designs. You can see what they've put together on paper based off of my mother's vision. The architect has a display as well, and we'd love for you to join in our vision. So those are the practical aspects of what we want you to do while you're here today. There's also going to be food, so you don't have to, be drinking on an empty stomach, although that would be entertaining for a little bit. In any case, I would like to bring Trine up and have her commence the dedication.
Standing here, listening to all of these amazing stories. In my line of work, I experience miracles every day, so they are not unusual to me. I hear about miracles, I watch them, and it is truly a miracle that Lynn is exactly right here. And I loved your stories. I mean, that was, people call them coincidences, I call them miracles. And it's the reminder that we really truly are not alone. We, not only are we not alone on our individual journeys, as depicted by the stories that you heard today, the magical way everybody has come together, but also we are just supported by Spirit. And so with that, Lynn is a warrioress. She is a warrioress for our warriors. And she listened to that courageous voice and allowed divine inspiration to influence the vision that she and Steve shared. We have all experienced the loss of a loved one. And we also understand the simple power of breath. Breath is the invisible thread that keeps us here. It is the invisible connector to our hearts, our deepest inspirations, our most sacred visions. We are all gathered here as family to honor, dedicate, and bless this beautiful place. Each of us holds a sacred, invisible thread in the creation of this property and its work. So let's just take a moment and bow our heads and reflect. What inspired you to come here today? Connect with your breath and connect with the divine message. Spirit is connecting through you. This honoring of your connection. That will make LZ Grace a reality. The divine has inspired through you, as we have heard so many miracle stories today. Honoring that voice for yourself. It is when we acknowledge that inner light and that inner voice, that reflection that Creator has blessed us with, that we are the most powerful. As we stand in our individualities and our strengths, combining our intentions, together, showing up united, we will bring rest, renewal, healing, and reconnection to our sacred warriors who give 100% of who they are for us, for all of your dedication to LZ Grace, and in gratitude and honor for the one that has created us all. Thank you.
I want to say thank you for coming. Thank you for driving out here. Thank you for standing in the cold. Please join us around the fire for s'mores, for heat. We have a choir. We have food inside. Help yourself. And I don't know what else to say. Oh, and we have music, incredible music for entertainment. Feel free to dance. Thank you guys so much for being here. And God bless.